Hello and welcome. I'm JD Overton from the Esri Land Records team. In the second part of today's presentation, I'm going to be discussing how property assessment and taxation organizations can create workbooks with insights for ArcGIS. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you how we built insights so that you can bring in any data, whether spatial or non-spatial, from multiple sources, including Excel sheets, ArcGIS Enterprise, and enterprise databases like SQL Server, SAP HANA, and Oracle. I'm going to also show you how to create great looking maps, charts, and tables using smart visualization defaults that are referred to as cards. These cards express the results of analytic operations and are fully interactive. Selecting a data element on one card propagates that selection across all cards with the same data sources. I also want to point out something unique with Insights. We've worked hard to make repetitive tasks easy. As you work with the application, we're building a model in the background. When you find you need to repeat the same workflow for a new data set, it's as simple as sharing the model and replacing the input data sets to see the new data propagate on the maps and charts. Now that you have some background on the capabilities of Insights, let's take a look at putting it to work. As I discussed in the first part of the presentations, Insights is a premium app for ArcGIS Enterprise. I'm going to begin with the Enterprise Portal homepage. You can see that I'm already signed in. The premium apps are available to authorized users in the app area. As I click on this icon, you can see that we have in this deployment Business Analyst and Insights available, and I'll click on Insights to launch the application. I'm now prompted to grant permissions to the Insights app to access my ArcGIS identity. This will determine what services and content I have access to in order to author Insights workbooks. The Insights app has been launched, and you can see that I have a workbook that's been shared with me. I can also create a new workbook, which is what we're going to work through in this particular presentation. So one of the first things that we're going to do whenever we're authoring a workbook is add some data. One of the options, as I mentioned previously, was that we can share models and to speed up that process. So if I look in the groups in the Insights for Assessment and Tax, I actually have a model that's been shared, and I could use that as a starting point to actually create an Insights workbook by simply just repairing the data sources with new data. But I'm going to build this one from scratch for this particular presentation. So what we want to start with is we're going to go over to the data. And so what we're going to do, since we're working with property assessment and tax, I'm going to select the parcel polygons. We can also connect to enterprise databases. So I'm going to highlight this database, and I could create a new connection. And so the only database that I have configured for my enterprise deployment is SQL Server. We do support others, and I would encourage you to check the documentation for those, SAP HANA, Oracle, to name a few. But for this example, I only have this one that's actually shared. But just for this presentation, I'm actually just going to use an Excel file using an extract of some CAMA data that we got from a small community. So this spreadsheet is going to have all the property characteristic data in it. I could also share boundaries, and these boundaries could be census tracts, they could be county boundaries, etc. And this could be used to aggregate some of your data if needed. I can also add data from the Living Atlas if that's incorporated into my enterprise portal. So lots of data sources are very easy to incorporate into Insights. So once I've selected the data sets that I'm going to use, I'm going to click Add. So the first thing that you're going to see is that the map from the feature service that is going to be added. And this really isn't symbolized in any particular way. it's just added to the map, and you can see that we have these polygons. And if I highlight one of these polygons and I open up the legend, we have the pop-up window over here that I can scroll through and take a look at the attributes. But one of the things that we see here is that there really isn't many property characteristics here in the source polygon data. So we want to integrate that using our Excel spreadsheet. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to create a relationship. So I'm going to start with the KMA extract, and I'm going to click the parcels, and you can see that it already matches based on the parcel ID. So we'll add that connection. And so the importance here is this is performing what would be similar in our desktop applications as a join. And so now we have the combination of these two. So I'm going to rename this um, so that we can, it's easier to look at. I'm going to call this KMA, and I'm just going to call these parcels. And so this is a combination of those two. Now, if I scroll down this table, we can see that Insights is already interrogating this data and making it easier to use. So we have a sale date broken down by year, by quarter, by month, day of the week. So Insights is going to break that down and make that really easy to use. So we'll also see some of the characteristics data. So the assessment neighborhood is listed here. We can see that we've got building style, quality, condition, year built. So just any of the KMA variables that you want to bring in, those are very easy to begin to create visualizations. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take this full assessed, and I'm going to add this to the map, and I'm going to add this as a new layer. So one of the things we think everyone's going to love about Insights is this drag and drop user interface. So that's something that we've worked hard to make it easy as possible to make you productive right away. So one of those key principles is drag first, click second. So for example, I'm going to come up and I'm going to find the condition field, and I'm just going to drag this over and create a chart of this. And we'll start out by making this a bubble chart. So what this is going to do is it's going to interrogate the parcel data, and it's going to count the number of features that we have. And the bigger the bubble, the more features that meet that criteria. So it's very easy to link these two together. So I click on this average. The features on the map are displayed there very easily. So I'm going to change the legend of the map just so that we can work with this a little bit easier. So by default, it's going to create what we call a graduated symbol map, and that's because the value fully assessed is a numeric field, so that's just going to be the default. So it's just a simple visualization, but I'm going to change this to be counts and amounts. And down at the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the field that has the total area or square footage, and we're going to normalize the value. So basically what we're going to look at is a thematic map that's going to be based on assessed value per square foot. And I'm going to change the renderer so that the values in the middle will be yellow, the ones in the center, the lows will be green, and the highs will be red. So when I apply that legend, we can start to see how that data is visualized. And as I zoom in, we can start to see a little bit more clarity here in these neighborhoods and how this data is being symbolized. So again, the greens are going to be our lows and the reds are going to be high. So one of the things that's actually happening here is um, this value average condition is actually affecting the map. So in other words, when I click on this chart, it's showing me only the properties that meet that criteria. So I can take any variable and change this. So for example, let's look at quality. So that quickly we can change the variable. I might come down and find something else, maybe roof type. I might change this, to be all kinds of things, number of pools, for example. So it looks like obviously there's not a lot of pools here. So I'm going to change this back to condition, and I'm going to add one more chart to the map, and this is going to actually be based on story height. And so we need to find the field that has story height in it, number of stories here. So one of the things that you see here is this little summation beside the field name, and that is an indicator of the type of field. But if I if I click on this little symbol, one of the powerful things about Insights is that I can change the value of the type of field that it is. So I'm going to change this to a string. So in other words, whenever I try to create a chart using a numeric field, it's only going to try to add those up or create a histogram. I want to actually create a summary table from that. So I'm going to highlight that field now that I've changed the type on it. So number of stories, and I'm also going to find the condition here, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to drag this out and create another chart, and this time I'm going to create a column chart. So what this is actually doing is it's finding all of the condition types and subcategorizing them by the story height. So now we can see that we've got one-story houses with average condition. If I go and hold the shift key, I can add to this so that we can get all of the one-story homes and only the ones that are one story. So now only the one stories features are active on this chart in the middle and on the map on the left side. So we see that we have some kind of outliers here. So what we can do with Insights is I can start to filter this. So for example, let's come to the number of stories, and if it doesn't have a story, that probably means it's an empty lot or it doesn't have a house on it. So I'm simply just going to remove those from that chart. And so this chart is going to be much easier to read, but it doesn't change the map. It's only filtering this one chart. So filtering is a very powerful way in Insights to kind of help you drill in to get the right answers that you want. So let's look at another example of filtering that you might find very helpful, and that is to target a specific assessment neighborhood. So to do that, we'll find the field that tells us where the assessment neighborhoods are, and these are actually stored as numbers, but you know, this is really like a label. So I'm going to change the type to be string. And so now what I can do is I can filter the entire um, set of cards that are based on this same data set by simply clicking on the filter. So let's find a specific neighborhood and let's isolate that. So I'll click apply, and what we'll see is we'll see a very different picture because when we apply just one assessment neighborhood, we'll start to see differences in the charts because there'll be much finer grained data or less data there. So with the map, I'm going to go to the zoom tools, and I'm going to actually just do a zoom to home on the layer that is selected. And what this should do, let's take the parcel layer. Let's just take this one out of the map. And now let's do this. And so now we're centered directly on just that assessment neighborhood. And now we can start to get a sense of the assessed value divided by the total square footage on our thematic map. So again, as I start to select these values in the charts, we can actually see the map respond to where those features are. So this is a relatively new subdivision, so it makes sense that most of the homes are in good condition. Now this map might not be real easy to read, so as you'd expect, I can change the base map. So any of the online base maps we can choose from. If you have actually a base map of your own, you can use that. Whatever's published, shared, and accessible in your portal, you can get access to those as backgrounds in Insights as well. So here we've built some very simple little views connecting these data together. and you can see how the filtering actually works. So next, let's move on and look at some sales data. So I'm going to go and add, and again, I'm just going to simulate this using an Excel spreadsheet. And this is some sales, and so I'll add that table in. And so if we wanted to visualize these sales, if I open this table, there is a parcel number, but there really is no geography. So I'm going to show you a technique of how we can create geography. So I'm going to go back to my groups, and I have a layer called central parcel centroids, and I'm going to add that to the map. And what I'm going to do with this, you can see that those centroids were actually added. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this name just so that it doesn't get confusing when you're looking at this, and we'll edit this one so that it just says sales. Now I could create a relationship between the centroids and the sales and get a geography just like I did earlier, but one of the ways we can enable location is simply just clicking on these little ellipsis dots, enable location. And if the data set, which this one does, has coordinates in it, I could use them by selecting whatever spatial reference those fields represent. I could use an address if there was an address field, but I'm actually just going to use the geometry from the feature service, and I'm going to find from the centroids where they match the parcel number. So now at the bottom, you can see that we've got best. So when I run this, it's going to actually geo-reference all of these points. So now they have actually a location. So now I can take, using the sales data, using any of the fields in the sales data, and add that to the map. So for example, we've got a field called sales ratio. Let's take that and let's add that to the map. And let's remove all the centroids. We really don't need that representation. So now we can see the bigger the circles, the more um, the the higher the sales ratio is. So let's build a chart off of the sales data. So let's take the sales month and the sales year, and let's drag those onto a chart, and we'll actually create this as a bar chart. And what you can see happened there when I added this in is that it subcategorized the sales by month by year. So if I hover over this, we've got 2013, 2012, and then 2011. So there's this sales data set represents 3 years of sales, 2011, 2012, and 2013. And so what we can see in this chart now uh, is that, I can easily find the sales that happened in August and in any one of the years. Any way I want to break this down, it's very easy to do and find those. So we can see that obviously in the summertime when kids are out of school, uh, we tend to have more sales than in the wintertime. So February was pretty slow in 2013 or in 2011. We just don't have much data there. So now we can see the sales. So the drag and drop is very easy. You saw how that works before. So now in the top here, I have this filter applied that is based on the target neighborhood. So I could do the same thing with this data set if it contains that field, and this one does. And again, it's a numeric field, so I'm going to change it to a string so that I can get a pick list. And so from this, I could further filter this. If I had the fields on the map or on a chart, we can create these filters for these pretty easily if we wanted. So another thing that we might want to do is I'm going to go back up to the map above, which has all of the data in it. And I'm going to clear that filter on the neighborhood. So we'll go back to all features. And so what that's going to do is it's going to basically just put all of the parcels back onto this map that join each other. So again, if I highlight this map and I start to zoom out, we can see that we have all the parcels. So one of the things about selection of features and integrating the maps together, I can take the sales data and I can drag and drop this onto the other map and say filter the features. And so the I'm going to select the fully assessed, so basically the parcel polygons by the points where there's sales, so that now this map at the top only represents where sales have occurred. So we've got basically a one-to-one correspondence now between the sales data in a polygon form on the top and the points at the bottom. So if I come up to um, this map, we don't have a lot of real estate when I'm recording. So I can hit this little sync button, and so that always syncs these maps together so that they're always in sync with each other. So the last thing I want to do here with this map, and again, we could filter these as needed, but I'm going to add one more chart to this, and I'm going to do that from the sales data. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the sales ratio, and we're going to highlight that neighborhood code, and I'm going to drag those onto a chart. And this one I'm actually going to create a, a box plot, which is a unique chart type. And this is going to help us identify the ranges of statistical measure within each neighborhood. So one of the things that kind of stands out here is we start to see in the sales data that we have some outliers. So what this means is that these are well below. So this might be a case where um, the price of the home was way higher than the assessed value. And on the opposite end, when the sales ratio is really high, that's an indication that the price of the sale was much higher than the assessed value. So if we take a look at these, I can click on one of these, and if I scroll up to the map and I use my zoom tools and I zoom to selected, that takes me to that one. So it's highlighted. So if I look at the pop-up window, that tells me everything about the particular sale. So the sale price was 7,500, and if we scroll down through this through the other variables and look at the assessed value, we'll see that in here. Let's see, where did that go? I may have moved that to the top. There we go. So we got a sale price of 7,500, but it was assessed at 30,000. So I don't know whether that's a lot or was a demolition on the property, what it was. But the point I'm trying to make here with this is that it's real easy for you to find where anomalies are in the data and zero in on those. So basically, there's only a few neighborhoods here that probably have outliers at all, and the rest we can feel pretty confident about. And those neighborhoods are identified there with the values. So this gives you some idea of how you could interactively take your data, incorporate those, and integrate them together in an assessment situation, and easily start to find answers and target things in your data. So now that you've seen how to create the workbooks, let's talk about a few things about sharing the workbooks. So once I've created the workbook, I can actually share this out as a page. So earlier in the first presentation, you saw us working with a page, which is a published set of cards that are interactive, but the person viewing it really can't change it any. A model can be shared also, and that stores all of the results of all the analytic operations that we were doing. So the input data sets will be stored. the joins, the aggregate the CAMA data and the sales data to the geometries. The individual charts are represented in the model, and even the base maps being applied and everything. So the model is an extremely powerful way to share commonly routine tasks that need to be performed again and again. So to conclude the presentation, I really want to kind of give you some ideas on exactly how to get insights. So it can be deployed on ArcGIS Enterprise 10.5 or higher on your infrastructure. So to perform analysis and insights, users need to purchase a premium subscription, and in addition, level 2 named users. Named users of level 1 type, they can view the results of workbooks, but they can't create them. So to create workbooks, you need a level 2 user. The other way that you can get insights is to have it deployed as a managed service. So Esri Managed Cloud Services can get your organization up and running fast with a world-class hosting and management support. So teaming with Esri not only gives you peace of mind knowing our cloud and GIS experts are managing your system, but it frees up you to focus on, discovering and sharing information. So also, the last thing to keep in mind here is that Insights is coming to ArcGIS online. So that will be available starting with the December update, the December 2017 update. And so look for that coming soon. Thank you for watching and have a great day.